Okay, can we start?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any doubts? From any of the thinkers, we are going to start Mead. Okay, George Herbert Mead. G.H. Mead. Any doubts?
Sir, I have a doubt.
Tell me, Ganesh.
Sir, in the previous session, we saw a line that repetition also has an element of conformity.
Which one? Pardon?
In the previous class, there was a line that repetition also have an element of conformity. I didn't get that line.
Retreatist means both negatives, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we have just mentioned that there is an element of conformity if you look in the latent side, okay, because they are not doing any harm to society. So if you consider anomy, it is like some harm will be done to the society as you are not following norms and values. So in that context, you can say there is an element of conformity. We are not saying it is conformity. This action is conforming to anything, because anyway goal is not set. There is no goal, there is no mean. So what they are doing, what they are not doing, nobody know. But they are not harming society. In that context, there may be an element of conformity in that. So that word is very carefully written. So that is diplomatically used sentence, because only to express that particular point, that is latent, some latent things will be there, some latent functions can be there, only to stress on this. Because even in the case of scientist also we have, innovator also we have discussed the same thing, ritualist also we have discussed the latent aspect, and here also we are discussing the latent aspect. But here we are using it very carefully. That line will tell you we are using it very carefully. There is an element of conformity. We are not saying what is it. So you don't want to explain it. That is the better idea. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So we are going to start with Mead. G.H. Mead. Only one theory, symbolic interactionism, or the theory of self. Okay. So can we start?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah. Tell me.
Oh, I'm sorry, I just joined now, so I don't know if you talked about it. So will we be talking about the reference group theory of Merton?
Yeah, we will discuss that. I will discuss that.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so we will be starting with Mead. You can see here, Mead is known for developing an evolutionary theory by combining body, mind, self, and society. So this is the first sentence we are starting with. Okay, so what he is doing is, he is combining body, mind, self, and society. So for him, these all are evolving together. So this is, body means it is biological. Okay, so he is considering the biological aspect also in his theory. When we talk about mind, it is psychological. Okay, so if you remember before, I've told you Mead is a socio-psychologist rather than a pure sociologist. Then self is socio-psychological, right? Socio, because when we talk about self, both element is there, social element is there, psychological element is there. Socio-psychological, and society means purely sociological. So his approach is basically an integration of, you can see here, body, that is biological, mind, psychological, socio-psychological, and psychological. So mainly these three is what you need to write: biological, psychological, sociological. So he is combining body, mind, self, and society. So according to Mead, body and mind is not two separate things. Okay, in fact these are the part of single evolutionary process, mind and body evolving together. Okay, so these are part of single evolutionary process. The body, when it is evolving, when we growing up, the mind also evolves. As the body evolves, mind evolves, and the mind evolves, the self evolves. Okay, and with self, that there will be society also, and that is how the connection that we are going to discuss today. This is how the evolution that he is discussing. When body evolve, mind evolve. When mind evolve, the self will come, and then we will become part of society. We will be integrated with society. So basically, this 4 dimension is what we need to discuss: biological, psychological, sociological. Okay. So this, you can see, this is from biological theories of Darwin. So he combines, I can say, biological theory of or evolutionary theory of Darwin, and then this part, when we discuss about mind, there are various theories of minds. Okay, so from various psychologists, so that from that also he borrowed, and this is theory of self, okay, and theory of society. So it is actually an integrated approach. So body, mind, self, and society. So just keeping these things in mind, we are moving towards the theory. So each and every word is important here. I'll explain each and every word. He considered them as part of single evolutionary process. Okay, that means when body evolve, mind evolve, everything is evolving together. So all these are single evolutionary process: body, mind, self, and society, and that too in a non-dualistic manner. Okay, non-dualistic manner means they're same for me. There is no, these are not separate entities. Body and mind are not separate entities. So when you say dualistic, means these two are considered separate. That is what the dualistic meaning, right? So non-dualistic means these are together. These are evolving together. These are not separate entities. That's what you mean by non-dualistic manner. So he combines. This is body. One second, something is missing here. He combines body and mind, okay, subjective and objective, micro and macro. So we have already seen there is a combination of approach which is going on in Mead's approach. So when we are talking about this non-dualistic manner, this is what you mean by the combination of these: body and mind, subjective, objective, micro, macro. And he intended to develop what is known as a cosmological evolutionary theory, finally culminating into a grand theory. Okay, so we will discuss what is this grand theory and how he is developing this connection between body, mind, self, and society. So that's all about the theory. Now Mead belonged to the pragmatist school. Okay, pragmatist, that is a Chicago school in which, along with emphasis on theory building, so he's not only focusing on theory building, he's also concerned about giving the solutions to the social problems. So giving solutions to the social problem, you can see in Mead's approach. So he belonged to the pragmatist school. So these are some points that you need to write in your introduction. So these keywords like non-dualistic manner, okay, pragmatist approach, emphasis on empiricism. So these are few keywords that has to be there in your answer. One second. Okay, so he was actively involved in finding solutions to social problems, development of government programs, and formulation of policies. Being an ardent supporter of modern science, Mead favored scientific methods with an overwhelming emphasis on empiricism. So if you remember, when we discussed about a deviation from positivism to non-positivism, I've told you Mead is actually standing between positivist and non-positivist. So when it comes to subject matter, there is an element of non-positivism because you're talking about mind, okay, all this internal aspects are coming, but at the same time he is stressing on empiricism. Okay, so in that context, there is an element of positivism here. So he is stressing on objectivity, he is stressing on empiricism. So that you can see here, emphasis on empiricism. Very important keywords. So we have discussed about non-dualistic approach, pragmatist approach, emphasis on empiricism. So these are the 3 keywords that has to come in your introduction. Any question related to Mead. Only one question will be asked from Mead, that is symbolic interactionism, nothing else. Okay, so Mead is known as founding father of symbolic interactionism, which is later on was systematized as a perspective by Herbert Blumer. Actually, Mead never wrote any book or anything. It is a student, Herbert Blumer, from his lectures systematized this perspective, symbolic interactionism. His approach falls within the domain of social psychology, okay, because there is an element of psychology also there. So he himself is preferred to be called a socio-psychologist, not a pure sociologist. His subject matter related to mind, etc. So there is an element of non-positivism. At the same time, since his concern towards empiricism, he is having some element of positivism also. So Weber and Mead stand between positivism and non-positivism. So here they will stand. So interactionist and interpretivist. Okay. Now his approach, which social psychology, which understand reality in terms of social interaction. So he will try to understand reality in terms of interaction between individuals mediated by symbols. So we all interact in terms of certain symbols. The symbols can be direct body movement can be symbols, or it can be symbols in general means gestures. Okay, so it can be verbal gestures, it can be non-verbal gestures. Verbal means it can be some basic elementary sounds to the complex languages that we are talking about, right? So if I speak I can speak English, so all of you will understand. Okay, so that is how the interaction is possible, because that is actually verbal gesture. That is what a kind of symbol according to Mead. So the interaction between individuals is mediated by symbols. So it can be the complex language that I am talking about here. Okay, non-verbal means it is the movement, hand movement, etc. So in that way also we can interact. So gestures, we will come to this. Mead's explanations start with examining in detail the biological capacities of an organism. He examines number of animals, referring to the research done by Darwin. Mead concludes that the process of evolution is not the same for all the organisms. So different animals, it is different. Okay, the biological capacity of an organism imposes limitation in terms of use of gestures. So the way we use gestures may not be possible for the animals. Okay, so he differentiate between verbal and non-verbal gestures. So I hope you understood what you mean by verbal. Verbal means, okay, verbal gestures range from elementary sounds to complex developed language. Elementary sound means like when we say ha, yeah, all these things are the elementary sounds, right? Complex developed language means that I am talking now, so all of us can understand. That is what you mean by complex developed language. So when we talk about any particular word, all of us, when we talk about religion, all of us can understand what I am talking about here. So if I am saying something like this, I have written something like this, nobody can understand here. Okay, so because this is not evolved and we don't know about that. So interaction is possible through the symbols. Symbols are in the form of gestures. It can be verbal and non-verbal. Verbal means it can be sounds, it can be languages. Non-verbal means movements. Okay, non-verbal gestures include facial expression, body movements, etc. The gradual evolution of gesture depends on the biological capacity, which again is the function of evolution of body. So what this paragraph is saying is, Mead understood that biological capacity of organisms are different. Okay, and because of that biological capacity, there is a limitation in terms of the way you can use gestures. And in case of us human beings, or in any other case also, this verbal gestures are there, non-verbal gestures are there. Verbal gestures can be basic sounds to complex languages. Non-verbal, it is a movements. Okay, so the gradual evolution of gesture depend on the biological capacity of the organism, which again is the function of evolution of the body. Now out of these, certain gestures are significant. The gestures convey some meaning. These gestures further impose a limitation on performance of activities or acts by an organism. Okay, he differentiates between organic act and social act. So organic act and social act. Now what do you mean by organic act? Organic act is actually having 4 aspects. You can see here, you need to remember exactly the same. So here he is making it, he differentiates between the acts organic and social act. Social act, these are the 4 parts: impulse, perception. These 2 are internal. Okay, and then manipulation, consummation. These 2 are external. So these are the sense part. Okay, and these are the implementation part. For example, if you feel hungry, the impulse of feeling hungry is this part. Okay, so you feel hungry, so that is the impulse. So there will be an impulse, and then that will be perceived. Okay, there will be a perception with respect to that. So these two are the internal side. Inside it is actually happening. Then you may take some action with respect to that. So you will manipulate that. You will say that you are hungry, or you will show some action to say that you are hungry, and then you will ultimately consume food. Okay, that is a final action. So these two are internal: impulse and perception, internal; manipulation, consummation, that is external. Again, when you are preparing for civil service exam, so there will be an impulse that you need to prepare for, you need to crack this exam. So it will be perceived internally. Okay, and manipulation will be in terms of you preparing for the exam, and consummation, that is towards the end. So this is how any action is actually happening. So any organic act have 4 parts: impulse, perception, manipulation, consummation. You don't want to explain what is it, but these 4 dimensions has to be there in your answer, because you will not get this as a long answer. Only short answers you can see in the previous papers. So all these things has to be incorporated. That is a challenge when it comes to Mead. All these should be there in your answer. Okay, so what all things that we have discussed so far, some way or the other you have to incorporate all this. That's the biggest challenge that you're going to face with respect to Mead. Content is there, but how to present is actually the problem. Okay, now so organic act is done. Now social act, according to Mead, is a collective act involving participation of 2 or more individuals. Like this we have seen in case of Weber also. It is nothing but the social action that we have discussed in case of Weber and Parson. Similar to that. So organic act, that is at the individual level, which involve 4 components, that is impulse, perception, manipulation, and consummation. Now social act, it involving like 2 or more individual. These are mediated by process of interaction. So here interaction is coming, involving some forms of communication. This communication can be through the symbols. Okay, so that is why symbolic interactionism, and the symbol means gestures. Okay, and those gestures are verbal and non-verbal. So symbolic interactionism means the interaction between 2 individuals based on symbols. That's it. Now social acts range from simple to very complex acts. Okay, society constitute of aggregate of social act. So all the social act, if you take and summation of social act, that is what society. So we are having some action which is going on here, so that is a social act. All the social acts which is actually happening in society, the aggregate of all the social act is what actually society. So he now connecting society also. Okay, so social interaction involves the use of significant gestures. So when we need to interact, we need to use significant gestures or significant symbols. Once the interaction takes place, the process of development of self starts. Firstly through outer conversation, then through inner conversation. In 5 minutes I'll explain what is this outer conversation, what is this inner conversation. So just understand, the interaction is actually based on gestures. Okay, so the interaction involves gestures or symbols, both are almost same. Once the interaction takes place, the development of self starts. So development of self starts once the interaction takes place. So a baby is born. Okay, so baby is born, the self will develop only when the interaction starts. We will see how this is actually happening in 5 minutes. There I will explain what is outer conversation and what is inner conversation. So you don't worry about this particular paragraph. So just understand, social interaction means it is all about gestures or symbols. Once interaction takes place, the self will develop. For that, outer conversation and inner conversation both are required. Okay, now it is coming. Outer conversation is just external response in the form of smell, hearing, seeing, etc. Okay, so baby will have outer conversation only, because only smell, hearing, seeing things, etc. Inner conversation explained by Mead through the concept of consciousness. Inner conversation is nothing but the mind. Mead called this as consciousness. So mind is consciousness for Mead. So outer conversation means it is only smell, hearing, seeing, etc. So when we consider a baby who is born, the conversation is only through outer conversation, only through smell, hearing, seeing. Okay, so how the kid will be realizing the mother and father, it is through these things only. There is no mind, there is no consciousness developed at that time. So inner conversation will come at a later stage. That evolution we are yet to discuss, we are coming to that. So consciousness also evolves from simple to complex form, again depending upon the biological capacity. So when you are growing up, the consciousness will develop, and that can be from simple to complex, again depends on the biological capacity. We have already discussed the use of symbols or the gestures also depends on the biological capacity. So he is actually combining the biological capacity to the development of mind, to the development of self, and to the development of society. So everything is connected to biological capacity. So that is the body part. Then discussed about mind part, right? Then discussed about self part. So interaction will lead to self, and different social acts will compose of society. So this is how that integration is going on. Depending upon biological capacity, the use of gestures and the social acts. A higher form of consciousness, that is reflective consciousness or reflective intelligence, you will see at the higher level. So these words are very important. Only the key words is required in your answer, otherwise everything you can write from your side. Okay, it involves not only simple interpretation but also innovation. The consciousness gradually evolves with the process of communication. So basically the self develop with the process of interaction, the process of communication. You start communicating with others, automatically the mind develop, the self develop, and society will develop. The process of development of mind results in the gradual evolution of self. Okay, so initially body, okay, all these are actually happening together. Body evolve, then mind evolve, then interaction, that lead to self, and that lead to society. According to Mead, a person's self consists of his thoughts about himself, including his body, ideas, emotions, and actions. In other words, it is a part of person's private world of thoughts. The process of evolution of self is thus a result of interaction with others. Okay, now this one or two times this was also asked. Mead used Cooley's looking glass self theory. This is not important from sociological side, only from Mead it can be asked, and in fact it was actually asked, looking glass self theory. So what is looking glass self theory? It is like we develop perception about ourselves by interpreting what others thinking about us, right? We look at the mirror and we try to see us from others' eyes, and we try to interpret about ourselves from others' eyes. That's what looking glass self. Okay, so it is not necessary that you need to stand in front of the mirror and you need to look in the mirror and you need to do that. It can be like this only. You stand in the shoe of other person and you evaluate you from the other's eye. That is what you mean by looking glass self theory. So we see ourselves through the eyes of others. Okay, so thus interaction plays a significant role in the gradual evolution of self. Thus, for Mead, body, mind, and self are all interlinked and parts of the same evolutionary process. Mead conceptualizes 3 stages of development of self. Early phase, that is 0 to 2 years. So from 0 to 2 years, the biological capacity was evolved, and the child learns to use the gestures through outer conversation only. At this stage, inner conversation is minimum, because there is no language spoken, there is nothing studied, okay, there is nothing inculcated in the mind. So outer conversation only during this phase. The baby try to learn things through outer conversation, through the smells, seeing something, okay, what the parents are doing, etc. Second, if you talk about play stage, that is the second stage, 2 to 7 years. This involves interaction with significant others. Significant others means you have to use these words, okay. Significant others means during this period, with whom the baby or the kid will interact more. It is with the parents, right? So parents and the brothers and sisters, etc. That means people around him. That is what you mean by significant others. So during this age, you don't have connection with outside world. You don't have connection with friends or anything. So it is a significant other. So interaction is mainly within family. That is what you mean by significant others. The child learns to use the significant symbol, and the process of inner conversation start. In the play stage, child learns through imitating, which Mead terms as role playing. So what the child will do during this phase is actually try to do whatever the parents and the sisters and the brothers are doing. So that is what you mean by child learn things from imitating. Role playing, this words has to be there. Next stage, game stage, after 7 years. At this stage, child enters into interaction with others. You start going to the schools and interaction with others. At this stage, inner conversation further develop and the process of development of reflective consciousness starts. So we have before talked about reflective consciousness slightly at the higher level, and reflective intelligence. If you remember, we have just before discussed this. This process keep on occurring throughout the life now onwards. Okay, so here reflective consciousness, so develop reflective intelligence will be there. So these are the 3 stages of evolution. So here if you see, we are talking about role playing. Now when it comes to here, it will be playing at a role. Playing at a role. It is not mentioned here. So role playing means you just imitate, but here not imitation, you are playing your role as a student or whatever role is there in your society. Okay, now self consists of 2 distinct parts, I and me. So this is very important, I and me. I is the subject and me is that part of the self which we see as an object. Now in simple language, if I want to tell you what is the difference between I and me, I am the person who is teaching you, okay, but me is the one which keeps on evaluating what I am teaching to you. Okay, so I am teaching you and me keep on continuously evaluating whether I am teaching correct, whether I am telling the correct things, etc. Okay, so I am a human being. Okay, I am a human being, and me is like I am a good teacher or a bad teacher. Okay, or I would say I am the person who is taking the initiative. I will take initiative of doing anything, but me will evaluate whether that initiative is good or not, good or bad. Or in simple language, again, I will act, me will observe or evaluate. Okay, or if you see like this, if you enter into civil service, if you pass this exam, if you enter into civil service, this will remain the same. I will remain the same. This I remain the same, that is psychological. Me changes as an object in society. The way you observe things, the way you evaluate things, everything will change. So based on that, even your act also will change. So I hope you understood. I is the person who act. Me, inside the I, the mind, you can say simple language, mind keep on evaluating what you are acting, what is your act. For example, I am going to a funeral, okay, and this I may feel like crying. Okay, so me will evaluate whether crying is right or not, and me will tell yes, it is right, you can cry. Or some people, okay, in the same context you can see, you went to funeral and I feel like smiling. Okay, I feel like smiling in the funeral, but me will tell you that that is not correct. You got it? So that is the relation between I and me. I is that part which act. Me is that part which observes the act or evaluate the act. Any doubt here? This I and me concept?
No, sir.
Or totally confused?
Sir, me means the sociological part, societal part.
Yeah, me is a societal part. It is almost similar to the Marxian concept of being and social being, but there is this almost same only, being and social being. Here I and me, I act, me evaluate. I teach you, me constantly evaluating within myself whether I am teaching good or bad.
Okay.
Okay, so okay, I'll continue. I is
So
the
then me is the society that dominates the individual.
which one? Me
Is the society that dominates the individual.
No, me is that part of society which evaluate the individual, evaluate my act. I've told you, looking glass theory. So based on that, whether the act that you're doing is good or bad. I is the self that acts. Okay, me is the self that we see as an object when we observe ourselves from the eyes of the other. You got it, Tejashini? This is what you're saying.
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, like I'm teaching, so me is evaluating whether I'm teaching good or not. So when I'm evaluating, I should be standing at your end, right? I have to
Yes,
consider
sir.
myself. The me will be like at the end of your side. That me is evaluating whether the I teaching is good or bad. Okay, so I will repeat it again. I is the self that acts. Like I am teaching, I teach. Okay, now what is the role of me? That is the mind inside. Me is the self that we see as an object when we observe ourselves from the eyes of other. So I will stand from the side of you and I will evaluate. Not I, it is actually me. You got it? So me evaluate what you're teaching is good or bad. Okay? I will be the person who's taking initiative. So me will observe or evaluate that initiative. Any case, whether that is correct or not. Okay, I is the source of spontaneity and innovative action, whereas me is the vehicle of self-regulation and self-control. So I is the person who initiate an action, but me will check whether that action is going to be good or bad, and me is actually self-regulation and self-control. It is a complex operation of I and me which leads to development of self. So I hope this is clear. So this is about the theory of, body, mind, self and society. I don't tell me.
So then can I say the concept of me has been evolved from the looking glass theory?
Durkheim? Looking glass theory. Yes. Actually this theory, it is coming from looking glass theory only.
Okay, sir.
Looking glass theory, you need to have an idea. Basically you need that line only. What is looking glass theory is what you need to know. Looking glass theory means you can explain this part also over there, because you are trying to see yourself from the eyes of others.
Yes, sir, because the me concept is explaining this.
Yeah, me concept is the same thing, same content, same thing only, me.
Yeah.
So
The reflexive consciousness and reflective intelligence,
both are same.
okay, sir.
You see here, Mead actually borrowed from, that is what I've written, Mead uses looking glass theory to develop perception about oneself. Okay, so this is what me. How others see, like that we will see ourselves. Every action that we are doing will be like, when we are, even everywhere you can explain every action of yourself with this. You are wearing a dress. Okay, it is not that you are satisfying yourself. You are wearing a dress because that is a trend of the society. So society is looking at you in this way when you are wearing this dress, so you are wearing this dress. Or makeup or anything. Whatever you are doing, all these are seen from the eyes of others and you are satisfying it. Okay. Now criticism, very easy to criticize. In his approach, Mead undermines the independent influence of macro-structural reality in humans. So here he is only considering this, he is ignoring the role of society. Okay, so you can use Durkheim here. Durkheim concludes that social facts influence an individual from outside and not through the interaction process. So like this we have discussed in case of Weber also. Weber also ignoring the macro-structural reality. Here Mead also doing the same thing. So you can use the same thinker, Durkheim, to criticize both of them. Mead's interrelationship of the self with society is too broad to explain the influence of different factors on the self. Okay, this is just for the sake of criticizing, you are raising some criticism. Mead has not taken into account other micro level psychological details like needs, motives, aspirations, etc. The distinction between I and me is vague. Other theories of personality understand self in a more comprehensive way. In the same way, the stage of self is the way the okay, here one point is missing. In the same way, the stage of development of self, highly oversimplified, The social psychologists like Piaget and Erikson and others have given more detail. Like these names are not important. What you need to do is you can write the stage of development of self is oversimplified. Any name if you take here, nobody is going to check that name. You don't want to necessarily remember these names. You can see here and others, right? So any people you can, others means it can be anyone, right? Any psychologist, and it is not necessary that that person who is evaluating the paper should know. Even these people also, they don't know. So you can take any number, even you can write Adam Gilchrist also. Okay, so yeah. Any doubt? So see, whenever I don't get any name, just in case of criticisms, like these criticisms are more general criticism. We are not taking any sociologist. So if you don't want to take any sociologist to criticize, you can use any name. Random names also you can take. You don't want to worry about that because nobody is going to check that. So this is what Mead. Slightly maybe difficult because of the subject matter. He's combining everything: body, mind, self, and society. So these are keywords. I'll repeat the keywords once again. Non-dualistic. Have you understood the meaning of non-dualistic? Because all these are together. These should not be seen as distinct entities. That is what you mean by non-dualistic. Okay, dualistic means consider it as separate. Consider body and mind as separate. Micro, macro as separate. This is what dualistic approach. Here, non-dualistic. Pragmatist means American Chicago school, that pragmatist school. Okay, that they are concerned about finding solutions and programs, policies, etc. His emphasis on empiricism. Then gestures, I hope it is clear. Verbal and non-verbal gestures, it is clear. Verbal gestures, non-verbal gestures, etc. All depends on the evolution of body, biological capacity of body. So he is connecting with biological capacity of body. Okay, so certain gestures are significant, and he differentiate between organic act and social act. These are the parts of organic act. You need to remember exactly the four: impulse, perception, manipulation, and consummation. And then social act, significant gestures. Okay, outer conversation, inner conversation. Outer conversation I have discussed at the first stage of development. Okay, first stage of development. Inner conversation starts from the second stage of development by imitating others. Here only seeing things. Reflective consciousness or reflective intelligence, a higher form of consciousness that will be developed in the third stage mostly. It involves, okay. Now looking glass self theory, okay. Early phase based on outer conversation only. Here inner conversation starts. In the third phase, inner conversation will further develop. Then we discussed about the concept of I and me. I is that who act. Me will evaluate or observe the act. So that's about Mead. Yeah, now we can discuss if you have any doubts.
But he's not talking about society, right?
No, and see, society means the social acts constitute of society.
But this is more like an individual part, right?
Yeah, individual part. That is why, see, what is the contribution of Mead basically? He's actually a socio-psychologist. He's linking everything with society. And his main objective is basically about talking about individual mind, social action that lead to society, etc. So if you remember, we talked about Mead in non-positivism. So the non-positivist element is actually the subject matter. Non-positivist element means what? Individual. So he talks society very less. And ultimately he is concluding that these individual, the social acts lead to society. Just like that only Weber also explained, if you remember. Weber also said, nothing external is there, everything internal, and that will lead to external aspect, that is society. Same is the case here.
And also he's from pragmatic school, so he should, and they are concerned about giving the solution. So what solution he is actually proposing?
No, solutions here, we are only interested in the theories. So we are only discussing about the theory here. Okay, but he was more associated with US government and all. So in the introduction part, we are talking about that. Otherwise, for us, it is not important. Where what he did and what all things that he did for the government and all is not important for us. Okay, so even this theory is also actually developed by Herbert, Bloomer only, his student. From his
And
lectures.
his theory is more like a psychological, because he is a psychiatrist, maybe because of that, but it's more like a psychological theory.
Yes, it is a psychological theory only.
Sociological.
Yeah, he himself called as social psychologist only, socio-psychologist only. He never called himself a sociologist. It is not a pure sociological theory, and that is why I have told you when we discussed about the sociology and comparison with other subjects. So sociology and psychology, if you get, I've told you there is no need to prepare a separate answer here. That's why we haven't discussed about this in the chapter 2. I've told you once we complete thinkers, you will be getting a lot of content. So you can use Mead. This theory you can use to combine. So you get 1 point. Weber you can use, right? Weber is also talking about individual action that lead to social action, meanings, etc. So that is also sociological element. You can use Durkheim. Which theory? You can connect with sociology and psychology. Can anyone tell me which theory will connect sociology and psychology? Durkheim? Suicide. Something which is considered as only sociological, psychological, but Durkheim made it into sociological. Then Marx. Which theory? Alienation. There he is specifically talking about psychological level also. Alienation from fellow workers and alienation from self. So don't you think you need this much content? This is enough for you to write a very good answer on this comparison between sociology and psychology, rather than talking about what is the subject matter of sociology, what is the subject matter of psychology, and mugging up that essential sociology which is given. It is better for you to write from thinkers, because you can write it very beautifully. That's why I'm saying, if you're strong in thinkers, any question like this, any question can be tackled so easily. Mead you can write in a superb way, Weber you can write, and you can see how sociology and psychology integrated. Here also how it is integrated. Durkheim, Marx.
So can we use these thinkers' ideas and theories to answer paper 2 questions?
Paper 2 also you need to use these things. Yeah, paper 2 also you need to use these ideas. You can use the key ideas like alienation, etc. you can use.
Or any general question is there, then also we can use these
general
ideas,
question.
right?
A general question, actually you cannot use any of the theories. There is a.
Okay.
It is not that you should not use, but where you will use these theories in general question. For example, sex ratio is asked. How can you use this theory? You cannot use any of this theory in
Okay,
sex
I mean,
ratio.
like wherever it can be used.
Wherever
right?
it can be used, you can
To
use.
understand.
But in case of Indian society, the issues that they are going to be asked, it is very difficult. Except some theories like alienation, maybe suicide. Other theories, you can't use Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism. You can't use these, division of labor or any other theories actually. Historical materialism is also. So there are obvious limitations. But obviously, any question, if it is asked, sociology, you will be getting like this only, the 10 marker, no? With a sociological perspective, answer the following. The first 5 questions will be like that. With a sociological perspective, answer the following. So simply they will ask you sex ratio. So what all things you will write here? That is actually the problem for all the students. What is sociological perspective? There are obviously you will be coming across some thinkers in paper 2 that you can quote. Apart from that, what to do for getting sociological perspective? Yesterday I have told you, you talk about functions and dysfunctions. Okay, and then within that you divide this into manifest function, latent function, manifest dysfunction, latent dysfunction. So here actually you are using 2 perspectives. What are the 2 perspectives you are using here? Can anyone tell me? Functional perspective and conflict perspective. Or you can even say neo-functional, because in neo-functional both are integrated, right? Dysfunction and function. So that is a perspective. So you get very good paragraph here, and then you can highlight it at the micro level and macro level. At the level of at the micro level and macro level you need to highlight it, any issue. You can also talk in terms of fact versus value. Okay, what is fact, what is value, we will discuss later. In fact, fact means what it is really. Value means what it should be. Like if I talk about nuclear family. Okay, nuclear family versus joint family. So what is the fact? The fact is, nuclear family. Everybody is living in nuclear family now because of various advantages and various necessities. The fact is, nuclear family is predominant. But what is the value? What individual want to? Individual love to be together. Okay, so the value is actually joint family. In terms of value, if you see, we still keep the jointness with our relatives, the kins and the cousins and everybody. We try to maintain the relation in terms of marriage functions, in terms of any issues happens. We all will go and we all will collectively support, right? So we try to live jointly, but because of the situation, we are in nuclear family. So what is a fact? Fact is this. What is a value? Value is this. So this is how you will be writing a sociological answer, and this is enough. These three aspects, if you can highlight along with one or two thinkers, you don't want to know a lot of thinkers for writing any answer. One or two thinkers is enough. In fact, quoting too many thinkers is not good also. That will indicate that you don't have any perspective and you don't have any sociological knowledge. Only after you writing from these things, you can quote some thinkers to substantiate or to bring some new points. Okay, that's it. Yeah. Anything else about Mead?
Hello, sir. Criticism number 2, there is doubt. Criticism second.
What is that?
Yes, sir. That second one. Mead's interrelationships is too broad to explain the influence of different factors.
Yeah, actually we are saying Mead is saying only the this connection, self and society, that connection. It is just for sake of criticizing we have written a line. It is too broad to explain the influence of different factors on the self. Basically he is ignoring various other factors. Okay, so again we are writing, this is also very broad criticism.
Okay.
So just for the sake of criticizing we have written a line, otherwise nothing is there.
Okay.
This is not specific, nothing specific is here. You don't want to worry about the words which is written, it is a general criticism.
Yes, sir.
All these are general criticism. This is vague, you can see, right? Every theory you can criticize by saying it is vague, it is subjective, like that. So all these are general criticisms mostly.
Okay.
Yeah, any doubt in any of the words which we have used here? So the key words has to be clear for you. You cannot mug up this also, because this question will be like 10 marker mostly. So this is around 400 words or more than that is there. But the challenge is all the words, these underlined words should be there in your answer also. So you need to prepare accordingly. So understand things and write from your side. Okay, maybe you can read once today, and any doubts we can discuss tomorrow also. We have done with thinkers. Tomorrow I think we'll start with family. Now we will go fast. We will finish one chapter per day, we can finish. Are we okay with thinkers?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So if you are good in thinkers, then you can be very confident. You will be in a position, just like I have shown, this, not only psychology, in political science also, you will be talking about Weber, Weber's idea of bureaucracy, authority, and then Marxian ideas. Okay, all these we can write. Economy, if you see, okay, so when you talk about economy, sociology versus, I'm just saying, if you know the thinkers, what is the advantage? See, when you talk about this sociology versus economy, tell me which all thinkers you will write here, apart only from the discussion that we have done. Otherwise you have many, see, generally you might have something in your mind to write about what is sociology, what is economy, what sociology study, what economy study. I'm not talking about that. Which all thinkers you will write here from the discussion that we have done?
Karl Marx.
Marx, obviously, right? So Marx theory of historical materialism, his concern towards economic infrastructure, material conditions. Okay, you can write here. Then, most important,
So division of labor.
Weber, Protestant Ethic and Spirit of Capitalism you can write, but the most important one is Durkheim. Which theory? Division of labor. Because division of labor was still then considered as something which is in the domain of economics, to increase production, increase productivity, increase profitability, etc. But now, after Durkheim take up this analysis, it became sociological. Okay? Like that, yeah. Anything else? So read all the thinkers, and maybe we can have a discussion tomorrow and day after tomorrow also. Any doubts we can clear. Okay? We'll stop here.
Okay, sir. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, sir.